Hello and welcome back to the multi-platform modding series with Architectury for Minecraft. And today we're going to talk about block drops and block tags. Because as you can see right now, we've added blocks to the game, like this Ruby block and the Ruby ore block. But if we try to break them, they simply pop away with no resistance at all. And even if we use a tool, we don't get anything out of these blocks. And that's what we're going to fix today, so that the Ruby ore drops rubies and the Ruby block drops a Ruby block. So let's start. Now, the first thing we're going to talk about are the drops, so that we get the items we desire from our blocks. And drops are handled through the loot tables of our mod's data pack. And for this, we're going to create a new folder in our resources directory called data tutorial mod loot table blocks. And in this directory, all of our loot tables for the blocks go with the name of the corresponding block, so that the game knows how to find them. So let's start with our Ruby block, so ruby_block.json, and in this file we need to put the following. Now, the first thing that we specify here is that this type of loot table is a block loot table, which tells the game that it is connected to the Ruby block as the name of the file tells it. And the next thing is we define the loot pools. We only want one because we always want a Ruby block to drop a Ruby block. And we also specify that we only want one role. A role is essentially how often the game pulls an item out of the entry list and then drops it on the ground. So we only want one role, so that always one entry of this list, which only consists of one entry, is dropped. And this essentially means that we always will drop our entry. And our entry is of a type Minecraft item, and the name of our entry is tutorial_mod Ruby block. And this means that every time a role is taken on this entry list, this Ruby block will be dropped. Now for our Ruby ore, we are also going to create a file, call it rubyore.json. And in our Ruby ore file, we'll put this. The start is similar, we again define a Minecraft block, but now in addition to this roles, there's also this bonus roles parameter here. And this is relevant if you have a fortune pickaxe, for example, because for every level of fortune, this amount of bonus rolls is taken. So if you have, for example, in this case, fortune 2, you always take 2 rolls, which means that you're pretty much guaranteed to get 2 rubies out of the Ruby ore. And in addition, as you see with the Ruby block, we wrote Ruby block here. For a Ruby ore, we just put Ruby because we don't want the block to drop, we want the gem to drop. Now that is everything we need to do to make our blocks drop stuff on the ground, but still our blocks would instantly break if we hit them. And this is the next thing we're going to fix. So for this, we first need to specify in our blocks class where we add our blocks and inside of our properties. So the first thing we want here is to always require the tool we will specify later for our block to drop something. And the second thing we want to do is to define the strength of the block, which determines for one the explosion resistance of the block, and for a second thing also the break duration of the block. And we will specify these parameters at the same time, but you can also specify them individually with the same method. I'll show you that in a second. So the first thing we need to do on our base properties, we need to call require correct tool for drops. This forces the game to check if the tool we use to break the block is corresponding to the tags of the block. And if it is so, then it allows the block to drop something, otherwise it won't drop anything. And the next thing we're going to call is the strength method. Now, as you can see, there are 2 versions. The first just takes 1 float, and this essentially is simply called to the second one, but places the value in both fields. The first one is the destroy time. This one determines how long you have to hit with your pickaxe or with your hand on a block until it is destroyed, and the second is how well the block resists explosions from TNT or creepers, for example. We just want 1, and let's type in just 3.5 as an example. It's a float, so an F. And we'll also do the same for a Ruby ore. And that's pretty much everything. Let's do it also for the deep slate ore, even though I'm not going to add the files in this video. But yeah, this is everything we need in the Java code. So now we're going to head into the tags of the game. And for this, since we want to modify vanilla tags, we need to create a new directory. And this is data Minecraft and then tags and then block. And in this folder, we first want to create a file so that we don't have to type in the whole path later. And this is needs iron tool.json. And in this file specifies the mining level. Come to that in a bit, but first we create a new folder in our block directory here and call it mineable. And in this mineable, we can now create a new file and call it pickaxe.json. And this essentially determines the tool. So if you want, for example, a block that can only be broken with an axe, you can create here an axe.json file. And if you don't have a needs something tool here, this is essentially just a recommendation which makes the block break faster when using the tool if you don't specify anything else. But if you don't have this needs iron tool, for example, you can always break the block by hand. It just takes longer. Now what we want to place inside this JSON file is this. The first thing we define here is that we don't want to replace the vanilla behavior. So this file essentially already exists in the game with the default Minecraft stuff. So for example, a diamond ore would be specified in here. And we don't want to overwrite those, so we say replace false. And the next thing is simply a list of our blocks that we want to fall inside of this category, in our case the Ruby block and the Ruby ore. And exactly the same thing we can also put inside our needs iron tool if we want both of these blocks to be only breakable by iron tools or higher. And that's everything, so let's jump in the game and check out if that works. And with that, welcome back in the game. So as you can see, I've given myself 3 pickaxes, a gold pickaxe to represent everything that's not iron, an iron pickaxe since that is an iron tool, and a diamond pickaxe since that is better than an iron tool. But first, let's try breaking this block by hand. And as you can see now, that takes quite a while because we set a strength and with that a break duration, and we need to wait until that is elapsed with our hand. And then we see that a block just disappears into nothing. We don't get any drops. It would be the same with the ruby ore. But if we use a gold pickaxe, the block breaks faster since it's the correct tool, but still no drop. With an iron pickaxe, we get a ruby block. With a diamond pickaxe, we also get a ruby block. And now the same with the ruby ore, gold pickaxe, no drop, iron pickaxe, we get a ruby, and same with the diamond pickaxe. So with that, you know how to add block tags and block loot to your blocks in the game. And in the next episode, I'm going to show you how you can add your own custom tools and how to essentially specify the mining level of those so that they can break our blocks. See you then, goodbye.